welcome to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Jazzy, and if you're a returning viewer, thanks for tuning in for today's video. In this video, I'll be sharing with you guys how to grow your hair with wigs. Now, I know a lot of times wigs get a lot of bad rap because someone who has some 32-inch bundles, girl, done took her wig off and she ain't got no edges. So in today's video, I'll be sharing with you guys how to grow your hair underneath your wigs and retain length. So if that's something you're interested in watching, please stay tuned for the video. If you're not already subscribed to my channel, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button right down there. I upload every Monday and Thursday at 7 a.m. and 5 p.m. and it would really warm my heart to have one more subscriber. And while you're at it, go ahead and hit that notification bell so every time I upload a video, you won't miss out on any of my content. Alright, without further ado, let's just go ahead and jump right into the video. In my opinion, wigs are low manipulation protective hairstyles that allow you to give your hair a break in between manipulation, and basically it just allows your hair to rest. There are different types of wigs depending on how they're constructed, but in today's video, I'll be talking about the top 5 in the African American community, from most popular to least popular. So the most common wigs you'll see when you're shopping are wefted wigs, and those are wigs that are machine sewn or they can be hand sewn. The next most common wig is a full lace wig, which is what I'm wearing on my head today, and basically it has knots from the hairline all the way back to the nape and from ear to ear, right and left. The third most common type of wig you have is a closure wig, and closure wigs typically have a small square piece of lace in the front of the unit. The fourth most common type of wig you have is a U-part wig, and U-part wigs typically have a section left out at the crown area on the unit where you can blend your real hair in to match the wig. And lastly, the least common type of wig that I'll be sharing with you guys in today's video is a synthetic unit, and synthetic wigs are made from fibers and they're not made from human hair specifically. Now, some synthetic wigs are a blend mix between some fibers as well as human hair, but girl, they're just trash, okay, period. Now that we've covered what wigs are and the different type of wigs you have, I'm just gonna go ahead and jump right in to the application process, because this right here can be the make or break portion of you growing your hair out and retaining length. So these right here are my steps. These are things that I've practiced that I can honestly stand by and say, hey girl, these work. Like, you need to listen to me, girl, because if you want to grow your hair underneath your wigs, this is the way to go, sis. I have the tea. The first thing you want to consider when you're thinking about an application process is getting your ends trimmed. Before you can go ahead and get your hair braided or wrap your hair up underneath the unit, you want to make sure your ends are trimmed, because getting your ends trimmed while you're wearing a protective hairstyle allows your hair time to rest and grow. So this way your hair is not holding on to any dead weight, it's not struggling to retain length, it's not struggling to grow faster because it has those split ends weighing the hair down. So if you're going to get a protective hairstyle, I strongly recommend getting your ends trimmed before any protective hairstyle. This way you can really allow your hair to rest and grow at its maximum potential rate. So once you've gotten your ends trimmed, the second most important thing that I think when it comes to getting your hair to grow underneath your wigs, when it comes to the application process, is your braids, or however you're going to protect your hair underneath the unit. Now for me personally, I like to get my hair braided underneath my wigs, but sometimes I also do like to get my hair wrapped underneath my units. It just depends on how often I want to wash my hair. But for the most part, I get my hair braided, and what I will say to you guys is the braiding process is super important. You want to make sure you have nice neat braids, nice visible clear parts, and that your braids are not extremely tight once you leave the chair or once you leave with your unit on secured. You do not want to feel like you have a migraine, a headache, or anything like that, because it'll cause alopecia near the front of your hairline, and that's just something you do not want. Find someone who does good quality work so you can get in their chair, and don't let anyone try to tell you that, oh, you're just tender-headed if you tell them like, girl, you're braiding my hair too tight, like, okay, could you like let up a little bit? Do not feel embarrassed or ashamed if you have to ask that person, because 9 times out of 10, it's going to damage your hair if you don't say anything. The third thing that's really important to remember when you're thinking about your application process is oiling your scalp. So after you've gotten your ends trimmed and you found someone who can braid your hair without making you cry, without pulling your edges out, you want to go ahead and follow up with some essential oils before you go ahead and apply your unit. So this way, while your hair is resting, it'll be able to soak up all those good nutrients from the oils that you've provided, and your hair will just love it. I promise this is the food that will help your hair grow. Having neat braids and getting your ends trimmed is just one part, but I feel like oiling your scalp is much larger than getting your ends trimmed or finding someone who could braid your hair without pulling your hair out. Oils are essential to getting your hair to grow underneath your unit. And the last thing that I wanted to share with you guys that I find is super important when you're focusing on the application process is lightly applying your adhesive. So when I first started dabbling into wigs maybe about 1.5 years ago, I literally thought you had to cake up your adhesive to your hairline to make sure the unit would stay in place. But over the past few months, I've learned a little goes a long way when it comes to an adhesive. You want to make sure you apply a thin layer that doesn't take too long to dry down. If you have to blow dry the adhesive down, you might have applied a little too much. Try to make sure when you're applying your adhesive that you're not going overboard, because you do want to remember once you take this unit off, you actually do want to have some nice healthy edges to match your length from the hair that you've been protecting while you've been wearing that hairstyle. Alright, so now we've covered what a wig is, we've covered the different types of wigs you have, we've also covered the application process, and now it's time to go over the removal process. But when it comes time to take the unit off, a lot of times people lose hair during this step, so I want to share with you guys a few things that you want to keep in mind if you're trying to actually grow your hair out with wigs. The first tip I could share when it comes to removing your unit is to make sure when it comes to remove the adhesive, you have some conditioner, maybe a little bit of a pre-poo treatment, as well as some essential oils and tons of water to help break down that adhesive, so this way you're not pulling out your edges, you're not ripping up your skin, causing any bruises or any scabs. You want to make sure you're being extra cautious around your hairline, especially when it comes with adhesive. And I know sometimes people get a little impatient, but girl, let me tell you, it takes patience when you're trying to grow your hair out. And if you just rip the unit off, you just say, oh girl, whatever, I'm too tired to take that time and remove the unit properly, you definitely will see it in your hair once you take the unit off and try to style your natural hair. You will definitely see. The next tip I can share with you guys will definitely vary from person to person depending on how long you like to keep your wigs installed for. But me personally, when I have my hair wrapped and I'm wearing a unit, I'll typically take my wig off every 1 to 3 days, and when I'm wearing my units and I have braids underneath, I'll typically leave them up for 1 week all the way up to maybe 3.5, 4 weeks. I don't recommend going any longer than that, because you do want to wash your hair and give your hair what it needs. That deep conditioning treatment, girl, do not miss out on those. And this next tip is something you want to do once you're taking your braids down. Now this is once you realize, okay, I've had my braids up for a minute, I'm just gonna go ahead and wash my hair and do my normal routine to give my hair what it needs. I definitely recommend using some type of essential oil when you're taking your braids down. This way it'll kind of act like an hot oil treatment, because you'll be removing the braids, warming the oil up on your scalp, and it'll also help prevent any breakage. And lastly, it'll also help catch some of those shed hairs you have, so this way when you go to detangle your hair before you go directly into washing it, it'll make the washing process a lot easier. And that leads me to my last point. So you want to make sure you're detangling your hair before you actually go in to wash your hair. Now you can detangle your hair while you're washing it, but right after you've taken your braids down, it's super important to follow up with a wide tooth comb to detangle your hair right before you go in and do your wash or do your pre-poo or anything in your hair care routine that requires your hair to get wet. So those are all the things that I wanted to share with you guys on how you can grow your hair under wigs. I personally think getting your ends trimmed before you get your hair braided is definitely an important step. Getting some braids that aren't too tight, that are very comfortable, that will allow your hair to grow while they're resting underneath the protective hairstyle. I also think wearing the units for 3 to 4 weeks is a really good time for it to be a protective hairstyle. I think anything after 4 weeks is pushing it, especially if you're not paying attention to your hair underneath. You want to make sure you're doing your normal wash day routine, giving your hair that deep conditioning treatment, that moisture it needs. And lastly, wearing wigs allows you to switch up your hairstyle quite frequently. So if you're someone who wants color this week, you want it short next week, the week after that you want it long, wigs are a great protective style for that because they allow you to play around with a few different things without actually damaging your hair. It all depends on what you want, just making sure that your hair is braided underneath, that you're not caking up a lot of glue around your hairline. You'll be good to go and your hair will grow. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys enjoyed my tips on how you can grow your hair under wigs. If you guys did, give this video a thumbs up and I'll catch you guys in my next video.